Top 3 most loved presidents in U.S. history. Number 3, John F. Kennedy, the young, charismatic leader who still inspires today. Number 2, Franklin D. Roosevelt. He rescued America from the Great Depression and won the war. Who do you think occupies the first place? Leave your answer in the comments. Number 1, Abraham Lincoln. Ended slavery and united a shattered nation.
President Trump's tariffs, and tonight the U.S. and China sending conflicting messages over President Trump's tariffs, upending global markets and the U.S. economy. After President Trump insisted the two sides were actively discussing tariffs, China calling it fake news, a Chinese official saying there have been no talks. Rachel Scott is at the White House.
Get along very well.
Tonight, China pushing back hard on a claim President Trump has been making for days, that negotiations to end the trade war are well underway.
Are you talking to them actively now?
Actively. Everything's active.
But tonight, China calling that, quote, fake news. A top Chinese official saying, quote, as far as I know, China and the United States have not held consultations or negotiations on the tariff issue, let alone reached an agreement. Today, reporters pressing the president.
Can you clarify with whom the U.S. is speaking with China? They're saying it's fake news that trade talks are happening.
Well, they had a meeting this morning, so I can't tell you. It doesn't matter who they is. We may reveal it later, but they had meetings this morning.
He never did reveal that information. It comes with the president under increasing pressure to bring the trade war he started to a close. Major retailers like Target and Walmart have warned him shelves could go empty in a matter of weeks if he keeps in place his staggering 145% tariffs on goods from China. His own Treasury Secretary acknowledges the tariffs amount to an embargo. Already shipments from China starting to dry up. The number of cargo ships arriving from China into the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach next week will be down 29%. And as President Trump approaches 100 days in office, a new AP poll out tonight shows only 37% of Americans approve of how he's handling the economy, a key factor in his election victory. And the same number, just 37%, approve of how he's handling trade negotiations. The White House says they have had successful meetings with other countries, including South Korea, but so far no deals have been announced, and it's still unclear if there are even negotiations with China, David.
Rachel Scott reporting from the White House tonight. Rachel, thank you.
Mr. President, you have said that Canada should become the 51st state.
Yeah. No. Well, I still believe that, but you know, it takes two to tango, right? But no, I do. I mean, I believe it would be a massive tax cut for the Canadian citizens. You get free military, you get tremendous medical cares and other things. You know, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together, I'm a very artistic person, but when I looked at that beauty, I said that's the way it was meant to be. But you know, I do feel it's much better for Canada, but we're not going to be discussing that unless somebody wants to discuss it. I think that there are tremendous benefits to the Canadian citizens, tremendously lower taxes, free military, which honestly we give you essentially anyway because we're protecting Canada if you ever had a problem. But I think it would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
Well, if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, you know, Buckingham Palace that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever. But the opportunity is in the partnership and what we can build together.
Never say never. Never say never. Had some very good news last night. The Houthis have announced that they are not, or they've announced to us at least, that they don't want to fight anymore. They just don't want to fight. And we will honor that. And we will stop the bombings. And they have capitulated, but more importantly, we will take their word. They say they will not be blowing up ships anymore, and that's what the purpose of what we were doing. So that's just news. We just found out about that. So I think that's very, very positive. They were knocking out a lot of ships going, as you know, sailing beautifully down the various seas. It wasn't just a canal. It was a lot of other places. And I will accept their word, and we are going to stop the bombing of the Houthis, effective immediately. And Marco, you'll let everybody know that, okay? Do you have something to say about that, by the way? It's a pretty big announcement.
Yeah, this was always a freedom of navigation mission. These guys, these are, a band of individuals with advanced weaponry that were threatening global shipping, and the job was to get that to stop. And if it's going to stop, then we can stop. And I think it's an important development.
Breaking news, Trump says canceled a $5,000 stimulus check you were supposed to get just as the House of Representatives was still debating handing out stimulus checks. A statement from the White House put a direct end to hope. Trump has officially called off the $5,000 stimulus rebate checks for every American that were scheduled to be handed out in May. The money, which had been planned to be distributed by the Treasury Department as a hedge against inflationary pressures and the soaring cost of living, has now been labeled by Trump as an irresponsible feeding of the economy. His reasoning, we can't continue to let the government be an ATM. Americans need jobs, not welfare. But this isn't a simple policy adjustment. This is a decision that is in direct collision with the lives of tens of millions of families. Do you have any idea what this $5,000 means to how many people? It's 3 months' rent, a respite from first aid bills, a child's tuition for the next semester. Now it's nothing. Leave your thoughts in the comments section before your wallet is completely forgotten. Spread the word to everyone waiting for $5,000 to get by.
President Trump says he's going to order the government to reopen Alcatraz Island as a prison. That word today in a post on his Truth Social site. Alcatraz operated as a federal prison from 1934 to 1963. It closed because of high operating costs and deteriorating conditions. Now a museum, it is one of the most popular tourist attractions in San Francisco. State Senator Scott Wiener has already responded, calling the proposal absurd, especially because Alcatraz generates tourists' revenue and supports jobs. Alcatraz is also undergoing a major renovation to make sure it is safe for tourists. Now, this all comes as Trump faces legal challenges for trying to send accused gang members to a prison in El Salvador without due process. Trump wrote on Truth Social that he wants a substantially enlarged and rebuilt Alcatraz to house America's most ruthless and violent offenders, adding that the reopening of Alcatraz will serve as a symbol of law, order, and justice.
Today, I am announcing a lawsuit to stop the most sweeping and unlawful assault on public health in our nation's history. This administration has taken a wrecking ball to the Department of Health and Human Services. HHS is responsible for protecting and preserving public health. And since taking office, this administration has fired scientists, closed labs, shuttered life-saving programs without rhyme, reason, or any legal authority. Nothing but devastating consequences for millions of Americans. This is not government reform. This is not efficiency. They revoked opioid response funding. They gutted the 988 suicide hotline support team. They slashed reproductive health offices, wiped out the disability services teams, and fired the entire team that runs the low-income home energy assistance program, and they eliminated testing for lead poisoning in children. They dismantled the agency that oversees Meals on Wheels, leaving local providers scrambling to keep seniors fed and safe. This is not how government is supposed to work. These actions are dangerous, cruel, and illegal. They defy Congress's authority, and they violate federal law. And that is why today I am leading a lawsuit joined by Democratic attorneys general across the country to stop this administration from tearing down our public health infrastructure. We are asking the court to halt the unlawful dismantling of HHS, to stop the mass firings, and to restore the life-saving programs that millions of Americans depend on.
Article 2 does not give the executive the authority to withhold funds, period. And multiple courts have weighed in to agree. Multiple courts have ruled in agreement. Congress controls the power of the purse. That is a fact. That's not a question. That is a fact. And so if the president disagrees with certain spending, Congress passed the Impoundment Act to create a legal process to seek rescissions, and we expect him to follow the law. This administration is not just ignoring the constitutional power of the people's elected representatives. It is also violating the fundamental right of individuals. Do you believe that the Constitution grants everyone in our country the right to due process, including non-citizens?
The administration has the authority to.
Ma'am, I'm looking for a yes or no question. Yes or no. Do you believe the Constitution? Yes, ma'am. Do you,
we have
ma'am?
not conducted
Reclaiming my time,
impoundment.
Mr. Chairman.
Time is yours.
Okay. Secretary Noem, I'm just looking for a yes or no here. Do you believe the Constitution guarantees due process to everyone in America?
Due process is exactly what this Congress lays out.
Yes or no?
Okay,
ma'am, I'll take that as a no.
On due process
excuse me, I'm trying to ascertain your understanding of the law as it applies to your department, and you as its leader should be able to give us a yes or no answer, because judge after judge has ruled that the law is not being followed. Do you believe that the U.S. government has the authority to deport American citizens?
No, and we are not deporting U.S. citizens.
I'm so happy to hear that you do not believe that the law gives you that authority, because the federal government has no authority under U.S. laws to deport any American citizen. And as I know, everyone viewing this hearing today knows that several American citizens have been deported to date. Secretary Noem, that was not a question. Secretary Noem, that oath that we both swore before taking office was to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, not the president, not a political party, the Constitution. And that's what we're going to keep doing here at the Appropriations Committee. Thank you. I yield back.
I conveyed to the president today what our countries have long proven to be true, that Canada and the United States are stronger when we work together. We can get a better deal for our workers. We can create more opportunities for our businesses. We can build stronger economies across North America when we work together. And really today marked the end of the beginning of a process of the United States and Canada redefining that relationship of working together. The question is how we will cooperate in the future, how we can build an economic and security relationship built on mutual respect, built on common interests, and that delivers transformational benefits to our economies. We had what I would describe as wide-ranging and, as I said a moment ago, very constructive discussions. We agreed to have further conversations in the coming weeks, and we are looking forward to meeting in person at the G7 summit in Kananaskis in Alberta.
Breaking news, Iran and the U.S. are fighting over a crashed American drone. No, you're not watching a movie. This is a real-life Red Sea showdown. Just now, a $30 million MQ-9 Reaper drone plunged into the Red Sea. No missile, no attack. It malfunctioned and fell right out of the sky. The problem, it crashed in one of the world's most sensitive hotspots, the Red Sea, and Iran-backed Houthi forces rushed in to grab it. Why is the whole world on edge? This drone carries America's most advanced surveillance, targeting, and encryption systems. If Iran recovers it, it's like handing your enemy a military blueprint for free. Here's the kicker. Iran has done this before. In 2011, they captured a U.S. stealth drone, flaunted it on TV, and even rolled out a copy on the battlefield. Right now, U.S. warships, Iranian patrol boats, and Houthi forces are circling the site. It's a high-stakes treasure hunt, and one wrong move could ignite a conflict. Do you think the U.S. can hold the line this time? Will Iran embarrass Washington again? Sound off in the comments. This is what the world's watching.
Trump got terrible news, and this could be the beginning of the end. As if Donald Trump didn't already have enough crises spiraling out of control inside the United States, international leaders are now rising up in defiance, sending a chilling message to Washington. The world will no longer play by Trump's rules. French President Emmanuel Macron took direct aim at Trump's aggressive trade tactics, calling his actions a shock to international trade, and announcing that all major European investments into the American economy are being suspended. Why? Because Trump's tariff war has thrown global commerce into chaos, and leaders across Europe are refusing to pour billions into an unstable environment he created. This isn't just political theater, it's economic war, and it's spreading. China, Japan, and South Korea have now announced a unified front to retaliate against U.S. tariffs, a rare moment of alignment that signals serious global backlash. Meanwhile, America's own economy is buckling, markets are plummeting, retirement funds are being wiped out, and job losses are mounting across essential sectors, from air traffic controllers to food safety inspectors. And yet, Trump presses on, convinced that the world will fold under pressure, just like the loyalists in his own party, people who've sacrificed dignity and spine just to stay in his orbit. But world leaders are refusing to grovel. They're choosing dignity over economic submission. And Trump, so used to surrounding himself with sycophants like Laura Ingraham, Jim Jordan, and Lindsey Graham, simply can't comprehend that kind of resistance. According to Congressman Jamie Raskin, Trump has turned our closest allies into enemies and our worst enemies into friends. And in doing so, he's become the architect of an economic and diplomatic collapse. The irony? Trump thought punishing allies would bring respect and investment. Instead, he's isolating America, pushing allies toward adversaries like China, and turning his America First dream into an America alone nightmare. This isn't just bad news for Trump. It's a global warning shot that his reckless ego may have triggered the exact downfall he was pretending to protect us from.
We have 4 items prepared for your signature this afternoon, sir. The first of these executive orders it may be one of the most significant executive orders of your administration thus far. This directs all departments and agencies of the federal government to end all discriminatory policies against the coal industry. This ends the leasing moratorium that prevents new coal projects on federal land, and it's going to accelerate all permitting and funding for new coal projects to allow the coal industry to flourish under your leadership, sir.
That's great. Thank you. Okay.
Sir, there are currently dozens of coal plants in America that are in imminent danger of being forced to close based on unscientific and unrealistic policies enacted by the Biden administration. What we're going to do is essentially impose a moratorium on those policies taking effect to protect coal plants that are currently operating, to ensure that they're able to continue producing power and continue providing jobs to Americans in the coal industry.
Right. Thank you very much. Okay.
Sir, you've made grid reliability and security a key focus of this administration. This executive order is going to promote grid security and reliability by ensuring, in part, that our grid policies are focused on secure and effective energy production and energy transmission, as opposed to woke policies that discriminate against secure sources of power like coal and other fossil fuels. Lastly, sir, one of the biggest problems we have in this space is Democrat states, radical leftist states, enacting policies and enacting an agenda that discriminates against coal, against secure sources of energy. Many of these policies are unconstitutional and illegal, and with this executive order, you're going to be instructing your Department of Justice to vigorously pursue and investigate these state policies that we believe are illegal or unconstitutional.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Great job. He went to Harvard when Harvard was good. It was a while ago.
Breaking news, Trump announces that Americans will no longer pay income tax on incomes below $150,000 per year. Just today, the Trump team officially released a major tax reform proposal eliminating the federal personal income tax for people earning less than $150,000 a year. This is an unprecedented fiscal shift, a true restructuring of the nation's bottom line. In his speech, Trump said bluntly, "Why should hardworking people pay for government waste? This is a system that must be turned on its head. No more tax refunds or credits, but total exemption. Hardworking parents, children who work hard every day, tens of millions of Americans will usher in an era of real relief." When the policy came out, it shook the whole United States. This will cause a large-scale government funding gap. But on Main Street, the real voice is that government is finally not here. Hardworking American, who is always crushed by high taxes. Let them know that the winds are literally changing.
Do you regret coming out and supporting President Trump?
Yes, no.
I hope
that
not.
part. Cut that part.
I hope not.
No. I was trying to be funny. You got me. No, I think it was essential it was essential for President Trump to win to ensure that America remained great, so that we reach greater heights. Really, some very basic things need to happen. We need to have obviously a secure border. We need to have safe cities where you can walk around without fear of being attacked. We need to have sensible spending. We need to strive to do great things in the country to exceed the things that we've done in the past. And I think if President Trump had not won, I think the Democrat campaign to import vast numbers of illegal voters would have succeeded. And they would have naturalized vast numbers of illegals during the sort of Kamala regime. And they would have turned America into a one-party state from which we could never escape.
What's more challenging, going to Mars or taking on Washington?
Going to Mars. Well, not going to Mars once, but say going to Mars to build a self-sustaining civilization on Mars. That is a very difficult thing, which SpaceX has not yet done, and we've yet to send anything to Mars. So, but whereas we have made significant progress in reducing waste and fraud to the government.
Why are we going to Mars?
Well, we're definitely, this is a change of subject, but we're going. It's not about going to Mars to visit once, but it is to make life multiplanetary, so that we can expand the scope and scale of consciousness to better understand the nature of the universe, and to ensure the long-term survival of civilization in the hopefully unlikely event that something terrible happens to Earth, that there is a continuance of consciousness on Mars.
This is a backup plan in case something bad happens here, going to Mars.
That's one of the benefits of Mars, is life insurance for life collectively. So eventually, all life on Earth will be destroyed by the sun. The sun is gradually expanding, and so we do at some point need to be a multi-planet civilization because Earth will be incinerated.
According to new reports, Tesla has stopped deliveries of its Cybertruck because of what can only be described as a catastrophic design failure. A massive chunk of stainless steel trim called the cantrail is peeling off like cheap duct tape, turning into a deadly projectile for anyone unfortunate enough to be driving behind one of these overpriced gimmicks. Tesla owners on forums are sharing horror stories where one driver said he was going 70 miles per hour, heard a ripping sound, and watched as a 9-foot-long metal panel detached from his $100,000 truck and went flying into traffic. Now, other Cybertruck owners are voluntarily ripping the piece off themselves so it doesn't come loose while driving. And if you think that's bad, the entire front plate of the truck is also just glued on. Videos are circulating of people peeling off huge sections of the Cybertruck's interior like they're opening a bag of chips.
There are 18 very important trading relationships. We are currently negotiating with 17 of those trading partners. China, we have not engaged in negotiations with as of yet. So I expect that we can see a substantial reduction in the tariffs that we are being charged. Approximately 97 or 98% of our trade deficit is with 15 countries. 18% of the countries are our major trading partners. And I would be surprised that if we don't have more than 80 or 90% of those wrapped up by the end of the year. And that may be much sooner. That I would think that perhaps as early as this week, we will be announcing trade deals with some of our largest trading partners.
Brian, remind us, where exactly do the tariffs stand right now between these two countries, and are we already seeing impacts because of them?
Yeah, well, I mean, we just got a fresh international trade and goods report from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and they said that the trade deficit between the United States and Canada was around $4.9 billion just in terms of goods. And you can imagine that as the administration has been talking about wanting to lower the trade deficit and even provide a trade surplus in some cases to other countries, that's going to be the measuring stick for the administration in terms of trying to even trade here. But I think as Garrett talked about, some of the major industries that are going to be a focus here, the automotive industry, which is so deeply intertwined with American manufacturing. There's so many goods that cross the border just between Windsor, Ontario and Detroit, Michigan. Also things like lumber. I think a lot of people forget that there is currently a review from the Department of Commerce into whether or not they want to tariff lumber. That would be a big deal for Canada, which exports a lot of lumber to the United States. And of course, steel and aluminum tariffs, which have been in effect, that 25% tariff, that is very much a big part of the conversation as well. But broadly speaking, again, the story here is the United States has been front-loading a lot of imports ahead of these tariffs in anticipation of that. This report reflects that. The trade deficit widening, although interestingly, most of that on an international basis was actually coming from pharmaceutical goods. So it suggests that maybe we weren't bringing in consumer goods like furniture, electronics, as some may have thought. That suggests that as long as these tariffs are prolonged longer than maybe companies were expecting, it could be more of a supply chain issue once we get closer to the holidays than even a pricing issue. Yes, prices might rise if you can even find that item at the store, Anna.
Let's press pause just for a second, because I want to take a look not just at what this administration says, but how it operates. Yes, over the past few days, Donald Trump has made headlines with an AI image of himself as the Pope. Grand ideas for rebuilding and opening Alcatraz and slapping tariffs on foreign films. But I do not want those stories to distract us. And instead, I want to take a moment to look at the stories that Donald Trump is not talking about. Last week, a United Arab Emirates state-backed investment firm put $2 billion in one of Donald Trump's cryptocurrencies. The deal was announced by Zach Witkoff. You recognize that name? He's the co-founder of the Trump family crypto venture, World Liberty Financial. But he is also the son of Trump's longtime friend and special Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff. You know, the guy who's been negotiating with Putin. Also on the stage when they made that announcement, Eric Trump. This deal would be a massive windfall for World Liberty Financial, which, as the New York Times has reported, is largely owned by a Trump family corporate entity. And on that very same day, Bloomberg reported that the U.S. is considering easing restrictions on NVIDIA selling chips, guess where? To the UAE. This would be a huge win for that country. Its progress on AI has been limited by the Biden administration's rules on chips. And now Donald Trump is set to visit the UAE as part of his Middle East trip. Guess when? Next week. And here's another story that I'm guessing you missed, wasn't on your radar, but let's put it there. An international trucking logistics company just bought 20 million of Trump's crypto coins. Maybe they're not trying to buy influence on trade policy. Maybe they are. But my question is, why exactly would a trucking company roll the dice on a meme coin that just happens to benefit the President of the United States. It is reports like this that have us asking over and over, is this White House for sale?
Breaking news coming out of Seattle, where dozens of demonstrators against the war in Gaza took over a building at the University of Washington last night. They also blocked streets and set fire to dumpsters. Now, this is the most visible protest of its kind so far this spring, following dozens of protests on campuses a year ago. Police arrested more than 24 people. Among other things, demonstrators demanded the school break its ties to the Boeing Corporation because of its military contracts.
This is an ABC News special report. Now reporting, David Muir.
Good afternoon. We're coming on the air for a moment here. The closing bell on Wall Street ending what has been a very tumultuous 2 days for the stock market. Another day of steep losses here after President Trump announced his sweeping tariffs. Millions of Americans obviously worried about rising prices and about their 401ks already taking a hit in the last 48 hours. Take a look at the closing bell there. The Dow down 2,200 points, closing well below 40,000 there at 38,314. The loss over the last couple of days, the Dow now falling well below 40,000. As I mentioned, the NASDAQ and S&P 500 also recording major losses today, both down more than 5%. The Dow immediately dropping more than 1,000 points after the opening bell sounded this morning. The markets spiraling globally over President Trump's tariffs on America's trading partners. Of course, those tariffs then paid for by businesses and companies bringing products into this country, and economists say then passing those prices on to consumers here in the U.S. Many of these countries have signaled that they will take counteraction with their own tariffs against the U.S. In fact, today, China announcing it will be imposing a 34% retaliatory tariff on all U.S. products. President Trump firing back a short time ago. China played it wrong. They panicked. The one thing they cannot afford to do, he said. The president insisting my policies will never change. And just a short time ago, he said only the weak will fail. I want to bring in Rachel Scott. She's our senior political correspondent. She's live at the White House. And Rachel, is there any indication from the White House, and obviously we heard what President Trump just said, any indication that they're going to spend this weekend ahead examining any potential shift here in strategy, given what they've seen in the markets over these last 2 days?
Well, David, I just spoke to a senior White House official who told me they are staying the course. That official pointing to me to the president's statement that he put out just moments before the stock market closed, saying that only the weak will fail. The president has been largely out of sight today. He has been on the golf course. He did respond to those retaliatory tariffs by China, saying that they played it wrong. The president is insisting here that this is going to lead to an increase in manufacturing jobs here in the United States. But he has acknowledged that could take time, possibly a 2-year-long process. The president has also acknowledged that there will be some disturbance, some short-term pain, he says, for the American people. The message from the White House is to trust this president, to trust this White House. But right now, David, they are moving forward with these sweeping tariffs as planned.
But as you say, Rachel, the White House saying manufacturing, it could take some time, up to 2 years to come back. Economists saying that could be 3 to 5 years before some of these factories that they're talking about could be up and running here in the U.S. I want to take our viewers back to the closing numbers here. Again, the Dow closing just a short time ago, down well below 40,000, losing 2,231 points, closing at 38,314 today. Our coverage will continue. ABC News Live, abcnews.com. And for many of you, your local news is standing by. I'll be back with the entire team for World News Tonight. I'm David Muir in New York. I'll see you then.
New details emerging on the escalating military tensions between the U.S. and Russia as Pentagon officials game out a response to Russian aggression in Europe. Vladimir Putin is now making some serious moves in the Caribbean. Our Brian Todd is all over the story for us. Give us the latest, Brian.
Wolf, tonight Putin is on America's doorstep with nuclear-capable bombers that can fly at twice the speed of sound. It's a bold move right out of the Cold War as the Russian president tries to establish a military foothold near American shores. A Russian bomber with an impressive wingspan touches down at America's doorstep. The Tu-160 has to deploy parachutes to slow down. Russian pilots, decked out in helmets and orange jumpsuits, climb out to a hero's welcome. 2 of these bombers, nicknamed Blackjacks, are in Venezuela tonight. Vladimir Putin has deployed these warplanes, along with 2 support aircraft, to conduct exercises over the Caribbean with Venezuelan forces. A worrisome development for Washington, considering the capability of the Russian bombers, which can fly twice the speed of sound.
This bomber was designed to do both high-altitude and low-altitude penetration of airspace with nuclear weapons, to deliver nuclear weapons on target. This aircraft was designed to be an offensive-capable weapon to get into our airspace during the Cold War.
The deployment comes on the heels of Putin's recent military aggressions against Ukraine on land and sea, and countermoves by U.S. forces. Analysts say Putin is sending an unmistakable signal to the United States tonight.
He's clearly trying to send a message to the United States that he can play in our backyard and that Russia maintains significant military capabilities.
Another concern tonight is the Cold War-style alliance of two strongmen who are both antagonists of the U.S., Putin and Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who visited Moscow just last week. Experts say U.S. military and intelligence officials are closely watching the Putin-Maduro partnership and how it may work against American interests close to American shores.
They have a close military relationship. Russia does provide Venezuela with significant military support. Usually with these close military relationships, a close intelligence relationship is part of that.
The Russian deployment comes as Venezuela is deep in crisis, triggered by plummeting oil prices, crippling economic mismanagement.
Every attack on President Trump only strengthens our movement. The left's madness is only a sign of desperation. Sham indictments and baseless allegations will not deter us, because the only crime President Trump has committed is loving America. And America, we are winning. Outside of his family and our country, President Trump also has another love: music. A few years ago, he wanted me to hear a new song he had selected for an upcoming rally. I could hear it blaring in the background at Mar-a-Lago. He landed on a song called "Hold On, I'm Coming." America, we no longer have to hold on. We just have to show up.